In this podcast episode, Gene Borrello, a former member of the Mafia, shares his story. He grew up in Brooklyn and Queens, surrounded by the Mafia culture. His family had ties to the Mafia, and he was best friends with John Gotti's grandson. He had a troubled childhood, getting kicked out of multiple schools and getting involved in criminal activities at a young age. Borrello started getting involved in criminal activities at the age of 15 or 16. He was recruited by the Banano crime family and was known for his violent tendencies. He was involved in armed robberies, beatings, and other criminal activities. His crew was known for their violent reputation, and they were feared in the Italian community. Borrello had a fascination with guns and found a sense of power in using them. He was capable of using guns effectively and was known for his willingness to use violence to get things done. He was involved in over 150 robberies and was considered one of the worst robbery teams in the 5 boroughs. Borrello recalls the most gruesome act he was involved in, where he and his partner beat a man to near death with a tire iron and brass knuckles. He also recalls a time when he shot a friend who had robbed one of the Mafia's main earners. He admits that harming friends or acquaintances on behalf of the Mafia was difficult, but he was willing to do whatever it took to prove his loyalty and value to the organization. Borrello grew up in a family involved in organized crime. His grandfather was a street dude, and his father was a bank robber. His father was wild in the 70s and even robbed someone for $800,000 before fleeing to Canada. His father's actions led to Borrello being targeted by individuals seeking to recoup the stolen money. This early exposure to crime and criminal activities set the stage for his own involvement in organized crime. At the age of 18, Borrello found himself in prison for trafficking cocaine. He spent time on Rikers Island, where he faced challenges and had to navigate interactions with gang members. Despite the rough environment, Borrello managed to establish connections and build a reputation for himself. Upon his release, Borrello dove back into the world of organized crime. He worked closely with individuals like Vinny and Ronnie G., who mentored him and taught him the ropes of the criminal underworld. He was involved in various criminal activities, including collecting money, scheming, and plotting. He also had to oversee card games and ensure the smooth operation of illegal activities. Borrello's criminal activities eventually caught up with him, leading to his arrest in September 2014. He was charged with a range of offenses, including home invasions, gun possession, and armed robberies. The severity of the charges and the potential sentences he faced forced him to confront the reality of his situation. After 19 months in prison, Borrello made the decision to cooperate with law enforcement. Facing the prospect of spending decades behind bars, Borrello weighed his options and ultimately chose to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. The decision to cooperate was not an easy one, as it meant betraying his former associates. Cooperating with the government comes with its own set of challenges. Borrello mentions the need for legal representation during the process and the risk of facing severe consequences if caught lying. He also highlights the importance of having coverage for all crimes committed in order to be able to talk about them openly. Borrello's cooperation had significant repercussions within the criminal underworld. He provided information that led to the arrest and prosecution of numerous individuals involved in organized crime. The decision to cooperate also brought about a shift in his perspective on his past actions and the consequences of his involvement in criminal activities. After cooperating with the government, Borrello spent almost 6 years in prison. He talks about the experience of being in prison, including the need to go under a fake name for protection. He shares stories of altercations with other inmates and the challenges of being in a high-profile unit with other cooperators. Upon his release from prison, Borrello had to navigate life outside the Mafia. He talks about the challenges of reintegrating into society and finding a new purpose. Despite his efforts to move on from his past, he found himself back in prison due to violations of his probation. He discusses the circumstances that led to his return to prison, including threats made to someone and the scrutiny he faced from the authorities. During his time back in prison, Borrello faced legal battles and violations of his probation. He talks about the efforts of a prosecutor named Keith Edmond to extend his sentence and the challenges he faced in court. Despite the obstacles, he managed to navigate the legal system and eventually secure a shorter sentence. Despite the allure and excitement of the mafia lifestyle, Borrello acknowledges the negative aspects and consequences of his actions. He reflects on the violence, betrayals, and risks that come with being part of organized crime. He also grapples with the impact of his choices on others, including victims who have reached out to him seeking closure and understanding. Borrello talks about the fashion sense of the old-school gangsters, contrasting it with the modern style of younger individuals. He mentions that the old-school mobsters disapproved of the casual attire and sideways hats worn by the younger generation. He reflects on the fear and respect commanded by certain notorious figures in the Mafia, such as Ronnie One and Charles Kigavina Sorrow. Borrello discusses the process of writing his book and the challenges he faced with the editing. He mentions that the book is about to be adapted into a TV show and a Hollywood film. He expresses his satisfaction with his current life, stating that he is off probation and able to travel freely. He talks about his plans for the future, including pursuing acting and continuing with his podcast. Reflecting on his past, Borrello admits to making many mistakes and having a reckless attitude towards consequences. He acknowledges his impulsive nature and the lack of consideration for the outcomes of his actions. Borrello also opens up about his struggles with mental health, mentioning disorders like ADHD and impulsivity. Borrello advises against getting involved in a life of crime, emphasizing the short-lived nature of the lifestyle and the inevitable consequences. He warns against underestimating others and trusting too easily, citing these as factors that led to his downfall. Borrello also shares his regret for not pursuing education and suggests thinking through actions before impulsively acting. In conclusion, Borrello expresses a mix of regret and acceptance for his past actions. He acknowledges the harm he caused, but also recognizes the excitement and adrenaline that came with his former lifestyle. Looking ahead, Borrello shares his plans for the future, including focusing on his podcast, pursuing acting opportunities, and aiming for a successful TV show adaptation of his book.